Hello, my name is Jennifer Blakesley. I'm a researcher with Portland State University. I work with the ODHS Youth Transitions team on program evaluation, and today I will be reporting the survey findings from our most recent round of data collection with young people receiving services through Oregon's Independent Living Program. The Youth Transitions team, in collaboration with myself and my team at Portland State University, began collecting annual service satisfaction surveys from young people and from adult supporters in early 2023. We now repeat this process every year with slightly different questions each time, depending on what we want to focus on. And today we'll review findings from the third annual round of surveys with young people. Today, we're looking at data from 214 completed surveys from young people age 14 and up in Oregon's ILP who were recruited by email from the Youth Transitions team in December 2024. Each young person received a $25 gift card, and they were told that their specific responses would not be shared with their team, but that overall findings would be shared with ODHS stakeholders. About half of our surveys came from the Tri-County Portland area, but we have good representation from the rest of the state. Looking at who completed our surveys, nearly all of them currently have an ILP worker. 54% said they have an open child welfare case. Half of the respondents were ages 16 to 19, and almost half, 48%, were age 20 or older. Note that we use the terms young people and youth interchangeably in this presentation to refer to the young people aged 14 to 23 who were eligible to complete the survey. 19% of our survey responses have been in ILP less than 1 year, 52% have been in ILP between 1 and 3 years, and then 29% have been in ILP more than 3 years. As far as how often young people are reporting meeting with their ILP worker face-to-face, the vast majority, 79%, are reporting monthly meetings, and about 14% are meeting more often than that. Each year, we give young people a list of 11 domains that we expect ILP will be helping them with, and then we rank these in terms of the percentage of young people who agree or strongly agree that ILP is helpful in this area. Each row on the chart you see on the screen adds up to 100%, and the gold and green sections reflect agreement that ILP is helpful. The results this year are similar to the last 2 years in terms of which of the domains are highest rated and the degree of use satisfaction in these domains. For example, 93% of young people who responded to the survey agree or strongly agree that ILP workers respect them, listen, and follow their lead. Next, 88% agree that ILP helps them learn to advocate for themselves. The degree of agreement on these domains reflects consistency year over year in a youth-driven approach to ILP services, even when new 5-year contracts are introduced. We also tend to see the more general aims of ILP reflected in the top half of the domain rankings. Things like 86% agreeing that ILP helps them learn independent living skills. On the other hand, we also see consistency in which domains have less agreement and slightly more neutrality or disagreement in terms of youth perspectives on how helpful ILP is in that domain. This year is the same as last year and reflects a trend where although many youth agree that ILP is helping with financial management and employment, we have a fair amount who are neutral or who are not agreeing that ILP is helpful in these areas. We know that these areas are particularly difficult for young people right now. That comes up throughout the findings this year and in other surveys we've done. So as a program, we want to make sure that we're focusing on this in a way that youth feel supported in developing critical skills, even in areas that they're struggling with. Another pattern carrying over from prior years, relationship-oriented soft skills are least likely to be something youth say that they are working on with ILP. This is an area for improvement. We want more youth agreement here, since this is such an important area for young people to develop skills while they can access ILP services. Here we asked youth to rate ILP, and this year we framed it as a 1 to 5-star scale. The pie chart on the left shows the number of the stars they picked. Note that no one selected only 1 star, which is the 0% label on the top of the chart. Less than 20% selected either 2 or 3 stars, and 81% selected 4 or 5 stars. Half of the respondents specifically rate ILP as 5 out of 5 stars. Looking at the average score for each age group on the right, the takeaway is that it's positive across all age groups, with the small number of 14 to 15-year-old respondents, who represent only 2% of the sample, rating it slightly lower. Overall, these numbers are consistent over time and reflect broad agreement that ILP is beneficial from the perspective of young people. Note that we do tend to see a more critical perspective from the adult supporters we survey each year, and those findings will be shared in a separate presentation. Next, we asked young people to explain why they rated ILP the way that they did, and the question was required to ensure that we got feedback from everyone. 65% of the respondents were uniformly positive in what they wrote. Many were brief, and we also selected a few longer quotes to illustrate how many young people describe ILP. It helps me through thick and thin, gives me the opportunity to make new connections, helps me mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially. Without them, I wouldn't know a lot of the things that I know now. They're a big part of my growth. We also have 28% giving more mixed feedback, reflecting both positive and negative experiences in ILP, or overall neutrality around the benefit of ILP. For example, I really loved ILP at the beginning, but with constant worker turnover, I haven't been able to do much of anything. They help me with a lot, but they also have forgotten to help me and provide me with some of the resources I've needed. Within the last year, things haven't been like they were before, such as organization with meetings, responding, and following through. Lastly, we have 7% of our respondents who are specifically critical of ILP, as shown in the quotes on the slide. Note that in the negative feedback, we're likely seeing the result of ILP staff turnover, resulting in clients having newer, inexperienced ILP workers. And in some districts, we have newer program contractors. New programs can be slow to start up and on board, hence some young people reporting that they haven't had an ILP worker in a long time. This year we have a new question. Based on what young people told us in the first 2 years of the survey, we created a checklist of worker qualities and asked each respondent to tell us which are their top 3 most important. As you can see, youth were most likely to choose trustworthy and/or communicative as one of their most important qualities to have in an ILP worker. Young people were least likely to choose understands and affirms my identity, which may reflect that it's just a smaller number of young people who align with a particular cultural or personal identity that they wanted to have reflected in their work with their ILP worker. But for 32% of the respondents, this was one of the most important qualities. In addition to what's most important in an ILP worker, we wanted to share some of what we hear young people saying they value about ILP in their own words. Here we see young people reflecting on feeling supported to achieve their goals, feeling comfortable, heard, and understood, and learning from both ILP workers and other young people in the program. As ILP has moved to include more peer group programming across the state and throughout the year, this has created more opportunities for youth to engage with and learn from peers. And just looking at a few more quotes on the screen, we see the theme of respect, understanding, and caring, and how these are important aspects for young people to meaningfully engage in ILP services. This year, we asked young people to check as many of the following service strategies that they receive from ILP. And as you can see from the chart, there's a clear pattern focused on sharing information, resources, and guidance. That's the top 4 categories you see on the chart, and that's a key part of ILP. An area for improvement is the 53% who say, ILP shows me how to do something so that I can practice. That's how we describe direct skill building, instruction, or role modeling in the survey. And what's surprising is that only half of the young people who took the survey said that this is something ILP helps them with. And many of these youth have had multiple ILP workers that they might have been thinking about when they answered this question. We also see this come up in the adult supporter surveys every year, that they want to see more documented direct skill building with young people as part of ILP. So that's an area of ongoing improvement. Group learning and experiential activities are considered a key part of Oregon's ILP contracts. and are prioritized as an evidence-based strategy to meaningfully engage young people in skill building while providing opportunities for them to strengthen their natural support system and step into leadership roles as group co-creators, peer leaders, artists, etc. We've been asking young people to complete a brief survey after every group via a QR code survey link, and the findings are very consistent. Across the board, young people are telling us they find groups fun, helpful, and/or interesting, and they say they had a chance to meaningfully connect with peers. They almost always say that they're glad they came, and when they're only somewhat glad they came, often it's a relatively dry topic and/or few other youth attended. And even when the topic is a bit dry, they take something away from it if it feels relevant to their future and/or if it has a fun component. When it comes to the groups, the most positive feedback from youth is about the experiential or fun groups, or the ones that go deeper about aspects of culture or identity, including but not necessarily their own culture or identity. 43% of youth in the annual survey said they want to attend this kind of peer group, so this continues to be an area of focus. Youth are also telling us that they appreciate this kind of approach to soft skill building. This is where we hear real fondness for ILP, and we see a clear finding in the post-group surveys of youth wanting to connect with peers around these topics. They also get excited when it feels like any kind of an excursion or adventure, especially something they've never done before, like whitewater rafting. And they like it when youth from another ILP program are there, so youth they haven't had a chance to meet yet. Lastly, it takes a lot for our ILP providers to plan these kinds of groups, and the youth notice that and they talk about it in the surveys. That's part of what makes it feel meaningful and engaging, and you can see that in some quotes we're going to look at on the next slide. So let's look at how young people describe groups in their own words. So we get for young people talking about, for example, difficult holidays and learning to push through and make new meanings. Learning to start new traditions started by spending time together in these groups. Having really good and very inclusive team building experiences that help them be able to tell other young people that ILP is a positive thing. That these groups can be a very welcoming and peaceful place. And a quote like this: I liked getting to walk in the soft snow and building a snowman, being able to have some pizza with friends after a long day. That's what a young person told us about a group they had in the wintertime. We also get a fair number of young people saying that their favorite part of the groups was getting to see a sibling or friends that they only see at these events. ILP also focuses on groups specifically as an opportunity to engage young people's voice, choice, and leadership skills. Every post-group survey asks about opportunities to have voice and choice in the group, and the smaller things matter, especially for groups geared towards younger clients. So that includes things like choosing food and suggesting future activities, and even completing the post-group survey itself. And we also have young people saying that they were given an opportunity to make choices or to lead in a larger, more meaningful way. So ILP continues to work with providers around scaffolding opportunities to use their voice and or to lead as youth become more confident in these roles. Next, we asked young people, what are the top 3 things you want more support around in 2025? This was open-ended, and then we coded the responses into the categories you see on the screen. As you can see, youth are most focused on financial support at 55%. We'll discuss this more in the context of housing, which is another top support need, along with education and employment. The list also includes many categories that best fit into what we think of as soft skills. For example, the skills for independence and personal growth category at 36% includes open-ended answers like trying new things and time management. Mental and physical well-being at 19% includes wanting to restart therapy, for example, or to go to the gym. Overall, about half of the young people were naming at least one of these soft skills as a top 3 support area for them. We asked young people whether they had a natural support system. Although 74% of respondents answered yes or said that they have this most of the time, 26% say they only have this sometimes or they do not have this at all. These numbers are consistent over time in our surveys with young people, and they are more nuanced compared to the NIDed findings, which tend to be in the 80% to 90% range when asking young people if they have a connection to a supportive adult. We also asked them what ILP could do to help them strengthen their natural support system. 26% reported that ILP could directly or indirectly help them connect to resources or otherwise build skills to strengthen their natural support system, including ILP offering more group events and workshops focused on soft skills. This year, we gave young people a checklist of potential ways ILP could be improved, or they could offer their own suggestion. 35% want ILP to be more knowledgeable about the resources to meet their goals and needs. 29% want a better plan for what ILP will be helping with. We have young people wanting improvements in the group events, more meaningful engagement with their worker, more supportive of their goals and needs, or identity and culture towards the bottom. And then another 10% wrote in their own suggestions, and these were generally related to wanting ILP coaches to be more stable or reliable. The rest of the presentation is specific to the 30% of the young people who completed the survey who are also currently accessing housing support, so subsidy or CHAPI housing, through ODHS or ILP. As you can see, 42% have been accessing these services for 6 months or less, 28% for 6 to 12 months, and 30% for a year or more. Each year, we ask both young people and caseworkers whether ILP is clear, direct, and thorough in explaining housing program rules and expectations to young people. The majority agree that ILP is clear, direct, and thorough. However, 13% of youth and 16% of caseworkers disagree, and they both say that when this doesn't happen, it's often because it's a new ILP worker who doesn't yet understand the program rules themselves. However, both groups also say that even when ILP is clear, young people may not fully understand the expectations, and therefore they still feel unprepared for the reality of living on their own. Where there is clear room for improvement is ILP providing a deeper level of overall housing and financial skill development in advance of the transition, as well as after, beyond a monthly meeting to do the budget. Related to the financial piece and housing affordability, although 45% of the young people in these housing programs feel that their housing is within their budget, 47% say that it is, but that they can't save anything. This helps explain why 2/3, 67%, also say that they don't have at least $1,000 in savings. When asking what young people wish they'd known before accessing housing, in their own words, youth were most likely to talk about skills to make and follow a realistic budget. So including not knowing how expensive bills and taxes would be, how to track expenses, and wanting skills for making more careful budgets, especially as costs go up or income goes down. 22% mentioned wanting to have saved more money before moving, being better about saving from every paycheck, and understanding the importance of savings, not just for emergencies, but for any unexpected expenses. 22% mentioned home management and living in community, including keeping apartments clean, carefully choosing roommates, and getting along with neighbors. Lastly, 20% mentioned housing program expectations, including subsidy budget caps, wanting to transfer a housing voucher, options for if they lose housing, and needing more support and resources to be provided through these programs, including food resources and job opportunities. When asking, what skills do you still need to improve to successfully and independently maintain your living arrangements? You can see that the major focus is on budgeting at 70%, but we also have nearly half of the respondents focusing on how to get more money coming in, including maintaining employment, getting a better job, or furthering education or training. For many young people, support needs will increase as they move out on their own. We asked, do you feel comfortable asking your ILP worker for support when housing-related issues come up? For example, your hours have been cut at work, you overspent, or you're experiencing roommate issues, etc. 80% said they do feel comfortable asking for support, with 15% saying sometimes, and 5% saying they don't feel supported. Next, we asked specifically about how supported they feel by ILP around money management. The chart shows the answers on a scale of 1 to 5. On the left, you can see that nobody said that they didn't feel supported at all, and 44% said that they feel very supported by their ILP worker, but plenty are in this middle range of sort of supported. So this is an area for improvement, along with more focus on money management overall. We also asked, how could ILP better support you in maintaining your living arrangement? You can see 38% are saying they need help finding employment or finding a better paying job or career, so bringing more money in. 31% are talking about budgeting again. We've got young people who are looking for housing vouchers, looking for additional resources, and finding more housing options as our most common answers. Next, we asked, have you developed or discussed a housing plan with your ILP worker to ensure that your living arrangement is sustainable once monthly ODHS funding ends? And you can see almost half, 47%, say yes, we've developed a solid plan and I feel good about it. 14% are working on a plan, still some things that they're unsure about. 19% are saying, no, we don't have a plan, but we started talking about it. And 20% have not discussed this yet. Lastly, when looking at planning for the housing transition by age group, you can see that half of the youth ages 16 to 17 have a solid plan in place that they feel good about, and another 25% have started talking about this. But keep in mind that it's only a small number of young people who are accessing housing and who completed this survey who are in this youngest age group. Next, ages 18 to 19 are least likely to either have a solid plan in place or to be working on one. Only 35% of them have gone beyond initial discussions, so there's a lot of room for improvement in that age group. On the other hand, ages 20 to 21 are most likely to either have a solid plan in place, that's 65% of them, or to be actively working on a plan at 15%. Lastly, most who are ages 22 to 23 have a solid plan in place at 50% or are working on a plan at 14%, but there's still room for improvement in the number who have only started talking about it. Thank you for listening today. Note that we will be sharing a similar video with findings from the 2025 Adult Supporter ILP Satisfaction Survey in the near future. In the meantime, you can reach out to me with any questions about the data or the findings, and reach out to the Youth Transitions team with questions about ILP or related resources. Thank you.